Hey guys, it's Scott with Scotty B Cars, and in this video, I want to talk about Fernando Tatis Jr. and whether or not he is currently a good investment. Fernando Tatis Jr., we've all heard of the guy. He is this shortstop stud for the San Diego Padres. He's really good. He has all these exciting moments, relatively controversial. People hate him just because he's good. You know, that type of player. He's a player who can be popular outside of baseball, which is saying something nowadays. But that doesn't really say whether or not buying his cards can end up being a decent investment for you. I know some people kind of squawk at the idea of baseball cards being an investment. I understand that thought process because you could consider it speculation. But overall, we're putting our money into this alternative asset, hoping it pays off, whether we're buying other cards with that money or whether we are cashing out. And I want to discuss whether Tatis Jr., his cards right now could potentially be in that situation. So let's just start. I like a lot of things about Fernando Tatis Jr. The first one is his percentile rankings from Baseball Savant over here. Everything you want in the red is in the red. What that means is if you're the 98th percentile, you are in the 98th best baseball players in that specific category. His whiff percentage, it's one of the worst in Major League Baseball, which we'll break down in a second. But overall, average exit velocity, meaning whenever he puts a ball in play, it is hit off the bat harder than almost anybody. Max exit velocity, the hardest he's ever hit a ball in that year, same situation. Hard hit percentage, what percentage of his baseballs are hit hard, which is over a certain number. Maybe I think it's 100 or 95. That's how many of those are hit hard. Then you have WOBA, which is really important. You have all these other statistics, but basically red is good. Even outs above average, which is defensive metrics. He's still above average in comparison to the average Major League Baseball player. Sprint speed, 96th percentile, but then you have his chase rate, his strikeout percentage, and his whiff percentage. That's the only negative thing about Tatis in regards to his percentile rankings. It just means he hits the ball really, really hard because he's swinging really, really hard. But that kind of makes it so he does strike out a lot, he chases a lot, and he swings and misses a lot, which is understandable if you're swinging as hard as he is. Then we have him as an offensive juggernaut. Here's some more. Everything down here shows, right here is everything up here, but it shows how it's all in red. And it's been in red every year he's been in the big leagues, age 20, 21, and 22. He's played 3 Major League seasons, at least parts. I think the most he's ever played in 1 year is 130 games due to injury and the COVID shortened season. But overall, he's had great years every single year. A shortstop who hits this well, an OPS plus, which compares to league average at 100, he's at 154, meaning he's 54% better than the average baseball player, which is saying something. Mookie Betts is about a 135, Mike Trout's a 176 for his career. And so you can see Tatis is a really good baseball player when it comes to hitting the baseball. And you can see over here as well, he's not just a pull hitter. If you look at Nolan Arenado's chart, all of his home runs are just pulled to left field. That's all he can do. Tatis can take a pitch the other way, and he can make you basically be punished wherever you're throwing the ball. You don't have to make an error and then he'll hit it out. He can hit it all parts of the zones, different parts of the field, which is extremely important for a player like Tatis at 22. It's only going to get better and better from this point on. Then he has the it factor. He is one of the few players that's recognizable outside of baseball fans. If you talk to some basketball fans, they'll know who Fernando Tatis Jr. is. And that's rare because there's not many players who break that barrier into being cool. That's why Ken Griffey Jr. has so much cultural significance. It's because he was cool. He made baseball fun and everybody enjoyed watching him. Overall, his career, he was a very good offensive player. He has about 80 career WAR, which isn't anywhere close to Willie Mays' 156 career WAR or Barry Bonds' 160 something career WAR. But because he is the way that he is, he'll always be an important part of the game. And Tatis has that potential, which I cannot emphasize enough is pretty important. He plays for a good team where playoff hopes are high. I know that the Padres sucked in the second half of this last year and blew playoff potential, but they're still good. They're getting Mike Clevenger back. They're getting all these pitchers back. They're going to have the same core back. Tatis was hurt in the second half with shoulder injuries, and if he's healthy, that's going to be a huge improvement to their team. So overall, there's a lot to like for the team he plays for. They're one of the more favorite teams in baseball. They're not like the Yankees or the Dodgers, where they're just hated because they're the Yankees or the Dodgers. He plays for the Padres, and they're more of a lesser known team. So I think that also helps him for collectors. His hobby pricing is lower than you would expect. That's the last thing I like about Tatis Jr. is he's not that expensive when you compare him to Acuna, Soto, and some other players in his same caliber at the same age. We are so spoiled with this influx of young talent that could potentially be generational. They're not Mike Trout, in my opinion. If you look at their statistics, they're not quite as good as Trout in regards to their advanced analytics and a lot of their other stuff as well. But overall, they are that next tier. They are players that have potential to be relatively the all-time greats for the 2020s and early 2030s. And that's important when you're collecting a player as well. And let's look at splits. So this is important to pay attention to when you're buying a player, because if they have bad splits, whether it's home road, whether it's lefty righty, whether it's first half, second half, it can determine when or how you buy. So let's look at home and away. He plays in San Diego at Petco, which is a very hitters suppressed park. So you can see his at batting average is lower, his on base is lower, his slugging is lower, but he still has a 905 OPS at Petco. That's really good. On the road, he has a 1,022 OPS, which is impressive, with a 312 batting average. Power is better on the road, more home runs, even though he has less games, and so forth. So that's something. He'll be there. He's signed a long-term contract, so he's staying in Petco, which will suppress his numbers a tiny bit, but nothing to be too worried about. Then you have lefties versus righties. He's very good against both. Right here, you can see he actually hits many more home runs off of right-handed pitching, which is surprising because he's a right-handed batter, but he actually has a much higher on-base percentage against lefties, probably because he sees the ball a little bit better out of their hand, and they're probably pitching a little bit different than righties do. And on top of that, about 20 points higher at this batting average. So take that for what it's worth. But the good news is neither of them are skewed either way. There's some players who have to be platooned later in their careers because they can't hit one side or the other. Tatis, he hits both fine. 951 versus 1,008 is great. Good job, Tatis. And this is the most important actual split for me, is his first half versus second half splits. He is much better in the first half versus the second half. Still over 900 in the second half is OPS, but not nearly as good as over 1,000 OPS in the first half. A lot of players, they have better second half because it's warmer and the ball flies easier. For Tatis, he hasn't played a lot in the second half because he's been hurt, and this last year he played in the second half and he had a bum shoulder, so I think these numbers aren't as important for him. But overall, this might mean if he has a hot start, you want to sell earlier than later, because it doesn't mean he's going to have a good second half, at least compared to his first 3 years in the big leagues. So that's the good stuff. He has basically no flaws in his offensive game besides maybe strikeouts and swinging outside the zone, but it hasn't hurt him enough. Whether he grounds out or strikes out, an out's an out, and sometimes a strikeout could be better than ground out and double play. So, strikes out a lot, but an out's an out. But some things I don't like about Fernando Tatis Jr. is the fact that his defense isn't elite. It isn't really even that average. It's right below average, I would say, for a shortstop, but he's young and he may lose some of his range as he ages. But you might say, but wait, back here on this slide, his outs above average was really high, 74th. Well, shortstops are actually kind of helped by the outs above average metric because it's a harder position, so they get a little bit more credit. If you look, he is a 23rd shortstop in outs above average. So there's 23 shortstops, 22 that are better than Tatis defensively out of the 30 big league teams. So that's not good. That's below average. Defensive metrics for defensive WAR, he's below average this last year. And if you actually look at his Fangraphs, he was negative as well. So next year he's projected by Fangraphs to be positive, and same by Baseball Reference. This may have been just a weird year, but overall there's questions whether he'll have to go to the right field. They put him in right field a little bit. He didn't look that good. That's what worries me. If he moves off a shortstop, he loses some of the awesome value that he carries. It's rare to have a shortstop who hits over 40 home runs like he did this last year in 130 games, I believe. That's impressive. But if he's a right fielder that hits 40 home runs, it's still awesome and pretty rare, but it's not as rare. You have Bryce Harper, Aaron Judge, all these different players. Giancarlo Stanton, when he plays the field, he usually plays right field. At least he did with the Marlins. It's kind of a slugger position, so not as valuable for Tatis collectors. On top of that, injuries are what worry me. He's had some freak injuries, which you can't really hold against him, but after a while, if a player keeps getting injured in a freak manner, you still have to worry, and I don't think it's fair to call him injury prone. He dislocated his shoulder a few times. He just had surgery this offseason, and that could completely fix this issue. Could completely fix it. He never has an issue with it again, or he may never be the same player again and has continuous shoulder issues. That's the thing for me that worries me the most. I don't care if he goes to right field as much as if he can just stay on the field. I'd rather have him in right field playing than shortstop and injured because of his shoulders. He dives for balls or gets hurt sliding. Because he's a dynamic player, he tries to do dynamic things, and to have issues at age 22 is a little concerning for me. So those are my thoughts about him being a bad investment. You have Juan Soto has a very different game while still providing very similar value, and he does not do much to get hurt in comparison to Tatis. He's not a base stealer. He's not going to make the craziest plays in the outfield. He's just going to be Mr. Consistent when he's hitting. Probably will age into a DH at the end of his career and just put up huge home run numbers, huge on base numbers, and so forth. So let's look at price difference before Tatis compared to the others. I just did Ronald Acuña's Topps Chrome and Juan Soto's Topps Chrome versus Tatis Jr.'s Topps Chrome. You can see the value is $255 for the Soto, $160 for the Acuña, and $159 for the Tatis. The pop is almost all the same, 9,000, 11,000, 10,000. Not anything that's going to make a big difference. Surprisingly, the Acuña sells more than the Tatis. Basically, Ronald Acuña Jr. sells for much more than Fernando Tatis Jr., which I don't get. Acuña just tore his ACL ACL, and he might not be the same player next year, probably will be at age 25, but his age 24 season's kind of worrisome. I'd be a little worried if I had $20,000 in his cards. So I don't get kind of why Acuna has all this value. He's more likable, I would say, than Tatis, because Tatis is more polarizing. The Let the Kids Play campaign was basically written for Fernando Tatis Jr. and Acuna, but you get my point. So he's still cheaper than Acuna and Soto, and I bet you could even put Ohtani up here. We could put basically any other young superstar, and he's below them, and I don't think that should be the case. I think he should be worth more. It may be because he has more rookie cards than Juan Soto, a lot more rookie cards, but he also has less rookie cards than Ronald Acuna, so it doesn't quite make sense. Let's look at some buy it nows that happened. This is a gold refractor BGS 95 Gem Mint card, $660. I know that's expensive for a lot of my audience, but for some of my audience, that's nothing, and I think that was a great buy. I have a PSA 9 of that card I paid $500 for, and I really like it, and I think long term it's going to be valuable. Then you have his base rookie card for $30. That's still relatively affordable. Then you have his Stadium Club, which is a much more short printed card for less than $20. You have a gold PSA 10 for $1,500, which sounds like a lot, but it really isn't for a numbered out of 2019 gold. And then you have his Topps Chrome for only $60. So overall, I think Tatis Jr. with his current pricing, if he can be healthy this next year, is going to make you a lot of money heading into the season. Just be aware as the season approaches, prices are going to go up as always because people are always buying hype as we get excited, especially if the baseball season doesn't get delayed due to the owners and the Players Association disagreeing on money. If it doesn't happen and he gets hyped up, there may not be as much money to be made, but right now there's very good buys on his autographs, on his numbered refractors out there that I think you can make some money on. Anyways, that's my thoughts on Tatis Jr. I say if you have some extra money and want to put it in some of the young guys, he's a great choice. And other than that, I'll catch you in the next video. Thanks for watching.